All right, today we're going to do something pretty cool. We're going to try and decode the future. Seriously, we're diving into real-time data from prediction markets to see what the smartest traders out there are betting on in politics, finance, and tech. Let's see what the future already has priced in. I mean, what if you could actually see a data-driven forecast for what's coming? Not some crystal ball, right? But something real, powered by data and, well, millions of dollars. That's exactly what prediction markets offer. And today, we're going to tap into that power to see the future that the smart money is already betting on. So, if you're new to this whole thing, the idea is actually super simple. Think of prediction markets like stock markets, but instead of trading stocks like Apple, you're trading on events. You buy yes or no shares on whether something will happen, who's going to win an election, or if the Fed will cut interest rates. The price tells the story. If a yes share costs 70 cents, the market is basically saying there's a 70% chance of it happening. It's the wisdom of the crowd, but with real money on the line. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll tackle the big picture stuff, politics and the economy. Then we'll dive into the corporate and financial scene. After that, it's all about the future of tech, especially AI. And this is the really interesting part. We're going to follow the money to see where the biggest bets are being made. And at the end, we'll wrap it all up with the final takeaway. All right, let's jump right in. Section 1, Politics and Economics. This is the macro stuff that sets the stage for everything else. Let's see what the markets are predicting. So we're starting with a local race, but one that's getting a ton of attention. The market is giving Zohran Mamdani a staggering 92% chance of winning the NYC mayoral election. And get this, it's not just that the odds are high. This is where the most money is being bet, over $91 million. That is an incredibly high conviction forecast. Okay, now let's look even further down the road, to the 2028 presidential race. The early lines are already taking shape. On the Republican side, J.D. Vance is out in front as the clear favorite, sitting at 53%. And for the Democrats, Gavin Newsom is leading the pack at 35%. I mean, we're still years away, but the market is already pointing towards the potential frontrunners. All right, let's talk about the economy, because the forecast here is, well, it's pretty nuanced. Traders are only seeing a tiny 5% chance of a technical recession next year. That's the whole 2 straight quarters of negative growth thing. So no big collapse is expected. But, and this is the key part, at the same time, they're betting big that the Fed is going to cut interest rates, probably multiple times. So what does that mean? It points to a very specific future, an economy that's cooling off enough for the Fed to step in, but not so much that it actually crashes. And it gets even more specific than that. The market isn't just saying, oh, there will be cuts. No, it's zeroed in on a number. There's a 67% probability that the Fed makes exactly 3 rate cuts next year. So the big takeaway here is that the market is predicting a managed slowdown, not some kind of cliff edge crisis. By the way, if you're finding this kind of breakdown valuable, do me a favor and drop a like and share it. Okay, so with that economic picture in mind, what does this all mean for companies and for investors? That brings us to our next section, corporate and financial sentiment. Now, you might think a cooling economy means bad news for the stock market, but nope. The sentiment is actually overwhelmingly positive. Traders are pricing in a 95% chance that the S&P 500 finishes the year in the green. And if that sounds a little contradictory, remember what we just talked about, those Fed rate cuts. They're often like rocket fuel for stocks. So investors aren't heading for the hills. They're betting on a really strong finish to the year. So in this classic showdown between old money and new money, the market has picked a clear winner. There's an 85% chance, according to traders, that gold will outperform Bitcoin this year. Now, what does that tell us? It could be a signal that people are looking for safety, right? They're leaning into traditional safe haven assets, stuff that holds its value when things get rocky, instead of more speculative crypto. And speaking of big stories, let's look at Tesla. The market sees the outcome of this one as pretty much a foregone conclusion. There's a 91% probability that Tesla shareholders give the green light to Elon Musk's controversial pay package. So despite all the chatter and debate you might have heard, the money is saying it's a done deal. Okay, on to the section that everyone is talking about, technology. And let's be real, when we talk about tech right now, we're mostly talking about one thing, the AI race. This space is moving so fast. So for more real-time updates, make sure you follow us on Twitter. And in that race, wow, the market has picked a really decisive frontrunner. Traders are giving Google's Gemini a 71% chance of being the top AI by the end of 2025. To put that in perspective, OpenAI's ChatGPT, the one that basically kicked this whole thing off, is way behind at just 13%. That is a huge shift in how people are feeling about this race. And this isn't just a one-off bet. This confidence in Google is everywhere. The market sees an 89% chance that Google drops Gemini 3.0 this year. It's also giving Gemini a nearly 50-50 shot at being the first to hit a major performance benchmark. But there's an interesting twist. When it comes to the specific job of coding, another company, Anthropic, is actually the favorite at 63%. It's not all about AI, though. The market is also looking at what's next for the stuff we carry around in our pockets. Traders are giving it a 53% chance, so better than a coin flip, that Samsung is going to release a trifold phone pretty soon. Just imagine that. It looks like they're expected to keep pushing the limits of what a phone can be. Okay, so we've looked at all these probabilities, but now, for our final deep dive, let's look at where the actual money is going. Because high trading volume, that's the ultimate sign of conviction. This is where the money is really talking. And the number one market by a country mile is that NYC mayoral election. Like we mentioned, over $91 million has been bet on this one single outcome. When you combine that insane volume with the 92% probability for Zoran Mamdani, well, this becomes the single most confident, most closely watched prediction on the entire board. Coming in at number 2 is a question all about political stability. How long is the next U.S. government shutdown going to last? With $27 million at stake, it's pretty clear that traders see a lot of risk and, of course, a lot of potential profit tied up in the political gridlock down in D.C. And the third biggest market? That takes us right back to the 2028 election, and specifically, who the Democratic nominee will be. We're talking $25 million being bet years in advance. It just goes to show how focused the market is on what's coming way down the line. And if you want to keep tracking these huge market movers as they change, this is a great time to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, let's pull all these threads together. What's the final picture the market is painting for us? Well, it's surprisingly clear. We're looking at an economy that's cooling down but not crashing, thanks to the Fed stepping in. We're seeing a political scene with some really decisive predictions. And in tech, there's this huge conviction that Google's Gemini is the one to beat in the AI race.
So there you have it. The wisdom of the crowd, backed by hundreds of millions of dollars, has spoken. The bets are in. This is the data-driven forecast for what's coming next. The only question left is, will they be right? We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for joining me.